This might perhaps be my most polarising review, or at least of a Doctor Who story, because this story that I'm reviewing today is not very popular. In fact, it's a very unpopular story. Lots of people hate it. Some people consider it the worst of all time, or one of their least favourites at least. But for me, I think this one's okay. I think it's actually got some good stuff to it. I think it's enjoyable for the most part, and even some of the bad stuff don't hinder my personal enjoyment. Yes, it's not quite 100% perfect. I'm not going to outright praise it like I did the last story, but I am going to acknowledge the good bits. I am going to say that I enjoyed it. Even the bad stuff is enjoyable and in the story, and yeah, I actually think this is actually, I dare even say, slightly good. At least at the very worst, okay, with some bad stuff. But also some enjoyable stuff as well. Yeah, so that's why I think this is going to be my most polarising Doctor Who review. Or at least it will be one of them. So, without further ado, and apologies for any noise outside in advance, and also for my constant, excuse me, because of phlegm in the mouth, and of course, sips of water. The Season 21 opener, Warriors of the Deep. To add additional polarising to this review, I've got my Jodie Whittaker 13th Doctor mug from Mataland. Yay! So yeah, it caused even more controversy. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Season 21, Story 1, Warriors of the Deep. And this is the first Silurian story since Doctor Who and the Silurians, and the first Sea Devil story since the Sea Devils, and the only time on screen that the two come together. Although I will address now that I do think there was a story in the middle that they should have done, because this story does kind of reference those two stories, but at the same time it kind of has some sort of stuff that felt like there should have been another story in between that to establish this, like Silurian honor, for example. This does feel like there are some bits that I know from watching those other two stories. Even back when I first saw this story, I knew the two stories when I first watched them. And even after quite a bit of time since watching those two stories, as I've been watching throughout most of the rest of Pertwee's era, Tom Baker's era, and the earlier Peter Davison era, I know that some bits aren't quite correct. Silurian honor, and when the Silurians say twice we've offered the hand of friendship to these humans, and twice we've been refused, our people slaughtered, and also when it talks about the humans persist on fighting, although that's at a present time thing. What the Silurian doesn't seem to realise is that the Silurians actually started killing the humans first in both this story and also in Silurians and Sea Devils. The Homo erectus, the Silurians started attacking humans, draining their energy, and when they needed to get their energy, they would attack the humans and try and take it from them. So the humans were actually defending themselves, just like they're defending the base here. So the Silurian doesn't seem to understand that the Silurians and Sea Devils have attacked just as much, and there seems to be this strange honor thing that's been introduced to this story. So yeah, it's a bit strange that we've got this additional Silurian lore that we haven't really explored, and some of the things the Silurians actually get a bit wrong with its past. Also, one of them seems to be the survivor of... Yeah, it's a bit annoying when that happens. Seems to be the survivor of the Doctor and the Silurians events. It seems to be one of the leaders, the sole survivor, possibly, so that scientist character. And he's got to as companions. Don't know where those two came from. And they found a Sea Devil base. So I'm not sure what's been going on. They could have explained this a little bit more. And they do absolutely nothing for the first episode and a bit. To be honest, this lot of Silurians and Sea Devils. Most of episode 1 is focused on the Doctor, Tegan and Turlough arriving on the base and running around, and the people on the base. It's during halfway through part 2, that's where stuff involving the Silurians and Sea Devils actually starts happening. Even with the revival of the Sea Devils, that seems to take over an episode to sort out. But in the meantime, I actually enjoy some of this sea-based stuff. When we first see it, it seems to be just business as usual, to be honest. It seems that business as usual, things that happen. There's also this pair of double agents in the organisation. And to be fair, one of them does kind of act a little bit stupid in part 3 when he's trying to escape. I mean, dude, you're under attack from aliens, sort of. You can drop your little petty feud and just stop fucking around. Yeah, that bit is a bit stupid. The guy's just... I know he's a double agent and all that, but you can put it aside for until the end of the battle at least, and then you can run away or do whatever you're planning to do. And the way his associate, Dr. Solo, she's actually a pretty good character, and Ingrid Pitts does a good job with the acting. But the way she's killed is a bit silly. I know I said this is going to be one of my most polarizing reviews, how I talk about say this is actually going to be quite positive in places. Well, and I'm just saying negative things at the moment. Well, like I said, it's going to have positive bits later on. I'm trying to address it as I see fit. I'm trying to go through bits of both, and just so happens I'm starting with the negative. But in all honesty, the stuff in part 1 isn't too bad. I mean, it's a bit silly that they're all running around the base and trying to chase the Doctor and companions down, and they just don't present themselves. I can understand why, because they're on red alert, and Doctor's kind of and company are intruders. They just need to calm down a little bit. Same in part 2. They calm down a bit in parts 3 and 4, and they sort of let it be sorted. So that's something to wipe the brow of. I don't think the Sentinel-6 stuff was necessary. I think they could have just arrived on the base and not worried about Sentinel-6. Sentinel-6 was a prick. And yeah, I think the sets actually look pretty decent, and the costumes. In fact, I think the production values are actually pretty good when it comes to the set. When it comes to sets and props. It's when we come to costumes that's where it kind of knocks it down a bit. Whilst the human costumes are actually decent in a way, and I actually think the Silurian costumes are actually a decent similarity to the old ones. I mean, to be honest, the old ones didn't look that amazing, to be honest. I prefer the new 2010 versions of the Silurians. I prefer them looking a bit more humanoid, but retaining lizard features, retaining reptilian features, so that they seem to resemble Homo reptilius more so, and don't look terribly. They don't look too human, but they also don't look like a typical alien costume like the older ones kind of do. The voices are a bit weird though. I'm not sure what they did there. And the Sea Devils, the samurai costumes are interesting. Interesting idea. I'm not sure why they decided to do that. The voices are a bit strange as well. They sound like they're trying to do a Zygon or an Ice Warrior. They don't quite get the Sea Devil voices from the older ones down that well. And again, those voices weren't that amazing either, but they were still good for that story. And then we've got the Merca. And in all honesty, I think the Merca could have been written out of the story. I think it could have been... I didn't think it was that necessary. I think it actually wastes time. But I can understand the limitations that they have with the story and kind of overlook that. So this is something I've been doing with Classic Who anyway. I've been overlooking problems at the time. And it's only when it's really bad, that's when I've got to bring the point up. And sadly, this does include the Merca. I will say it's probably just the Merca for this story, for me personally. But Yeah, very noticeably bad, and could have been dropped altogether. And the poor guys inside it, they had to smell glue because it was only, they had to start filming pretty much an hour after it was finished assembling. Yeah, whoops. And yeah, rough production as well, due to having to, the production losing 2 weeks due to the BBC studios having to use space for the general election, for Margaret Thatcher calling it general election, meaning the BBC have to use some space to for that stuff. When was this story filmed in? Because general elections usually take place in May. Maybe, yeah, usually in May, so I don't know when the story was being filmed. I know it came out in January 84, but I don't know when in 83 it was filmed. So, yeah, not sure. And why it's only 2 weeks of coverage, I don't understand, as opposed to several months. I mean, yeah, times change, but yeah, I would have thought they'd have more time. It's not like it's Christmas programmes like when it was Sharda. And it's very noticeable that there are quite a few one-takes, such as when the death of these crew members at the hands of the Merker, where it just taps a wall and they get electrocuted. There must be some sort of wiring in there just to lead to that bit. Otherwise, that's just a pretty stupid way to be killed. But I will say, despite that, I do think it is handled mostly right. I mean, it's not quite as good as it could have been, but it could have been a lot worse, to be honest. It could have had a rushed production. Takes could have been a lot worse. Acting could have been worse. I actually think the acting is pretty good for the most parts, from all fronts. Script was also slightly edited as well a little bit, and I think that could have been fixed up a little bit in some places. And yeah, and also I have to point out that some members of the crew entered the Doctor's TARDIS unannounced, and I'm wondering, why didn't the Doctor lock his TARDIS? Apparently a few stories back, I don't know which story it was, but a few stories ago they actually had an explanation of why they can now have weapons inside the TARDIS. I think it was Arc of Infinity or something. It was a story back at the end of season 19 or in season 20, early season 20, where they say something's broken, that means we can now have weapons inside the TARDIS. I still consider the no weapons or you can't harm anyone inside the whilst inside the TARDIS thing from Hand of Fear. I still consider that bullshit. But whenever that line was said, it was certainly a very end of season 19 or very start of season 20. They pretty much explained why from this point onwards you can have, or at least from Earthshock onwards, you can have weapons and hurt people inside the TARDIS. Well, you can fire weapons and hurt people inside the TARDIS. Now, that doesn't really relate to what I'm talking about now. I just wanted to bring that up. Now, what I'm talking about now is why the Doctor didn't lock his TARDIS. I'm actually sort of reading the TARDIS manual at points. And there was one bit I read earlier that said that there is a thing that kind of blocks people coming into the TARDIS. Originally, there was a lock combination that only the Doctor and then Susan knew, and then later it was made to be a simple lock, but the TARDIS would know about hostile people inside, although, again, that seems to have worn away over time. So, yeah, I'm just wondering why the Doctor just didn't lock the TARDIS door in this story. I mean, I can understand him forgetting, that's all. I'm glad they got on inside the TARDIS so that they can understand, actually, these guys are telling the truth, but I'm just wondering why the Doctor didn't lock the door. But that's really about it for negatives, unless I think of something else. As for positives, well, personally, I actually enjoy all 4 episodes, for the most part. It's not a story that I absolutely can't stand. I can watch it, I can even enjoy it in place. Even the bad stuff, like the Mercury, still brings a bit of joy. So I actually kind of enjoyed this story. I found it good, enjoyable. And like I said, I think most of the acting is good for the most part, especially from the main guest cast and, of course, our main cast. I think the characters are well for what they have. I think Turlough has finally come into his own as a companion after the King's Demons kind of didn't really focus on that. The King's Demons had him locked in a dungeon for an episode and a bit. So it doesn't really do much with Turlough once he had been free of the Black Guardian's contract. The 5 Doctors did try And I do think it succeeded, but there wasn't a huge amount of him, because considering how many characters that story's got to juggle. So I think actually with that and with this story, I think Turlo has now come into his own as a companion without being in league with the Black Guardian, and this will help with him going forward in later stories. He still has some of his personalities from those three, from the Black Guardian trilogy, but I think that works well with the character, and I think he works well. Tegan's also really good here, and the Doctor is also good. I think he had a haircut for this story, and I think Peter Davison, he does. Even when I first saw this story, and this was the first Davison story I actually watched, well, excluding his appearances in Time Crash, of course, but I did think actually he does seem to have had a bit more of a haircut, because he does look a little bit different to as I've seen him in other in photographs and clips. And I think he does grow his hair back over the course of the episode, which would be down to filming courses. I mean, when I film, sometimes my hair is longer or shorter in different takes. Sometimes I have got longer stubble stuff. So yeah, that's filming for you. That's filming and editing, and having to do it on a day job, having to do this on several days. And I also think the models are pretty good, although the Silurian base one, that door is quite big for such a small dock, and for such a big ship as well, an underwater ship. Nice ship design as well. Could be quite unique, quite interesting, and the underwater story works. And I actually like how it's kind of reflecting on the present state of the world, with two opposite powers fighting against each other. Although it doesn't seem like this is specifically USA versus Russia, but more seems to be a bit more international, with some more international characters in this story. Although it doesn't really say what the motive of the traitors are. I mean, maybe just being agents, infiltrating and stealing Maddox's disc thing. That would help them control people, I suppose. Without them with them getting tired, but you can still control them to keep going on. Just never mind what. But besides that, I don't really know what their plan is. And that's really about it to say. Oh, and also the ending is actually pretty good, where it's actually quite macabre. I mean, some of the deaths were a bit unnecessary, such as Maddox and the girl who finds the TARDIS, and also the captain dying was also just like that. It was just, he got shot and he just died once the mission was over, leaving just one guy on the entire base still alive by the looks of it. A likeable guy, but it's just one guy anyway. But I do like how it does end on a dark, dreary note, how the Doctor realises that there should have been another way, with nearly everybody else dead. I actually kind of like that. I think that's pretty cool. Although I do think some of them could have survived, but it's still a really good note to end on. So on the whole, despite Warriors of the Deep's flaws in both a script and an execution value, I still think there are some good things about it. I still think there are some likeable stuff. And they honestly seem like they actually do care about the characters, both human and Homo Reptilia. It's just that they couldn't really present it very well, partly due to possibly losing 2 weeks of production due to general election coverage, and maybe partly due to maybe it's a bit of an ambitious script. But I certainly think that it works well. But I think it could certainly have been a lot better given the time, the extra time they could have had. And script-wise, I think maybe could have had another draft to fix quite a few kinks out. But I still like it. I still find it enjoyable. It's actually a faster-paced story than most 4-parters, especially around this era. And I still think it's good. It's not amazing. It's not 5 Doctors level, but it's still good. I think at least a low good score. I'm not going to give this a very high score, don't worry. But I'm not going to give it a completely bad score. I'm not going to rant about it. I'm not going to absolutely hate this story. I'm kind of in the middle. I enjoyed the story. I like it, but I will admit there are some not so good things about it. and it's not quite that great. So I'm going to be giving Warriors of the Deep a 5 out of 10. Here I'm going straight down the middle. I'm not going to be too negative. I'm not going to be too positive either, even though I really did enjoy this story. And I don't really think the negatives affect me personally more than most people, but I will not deny that there are enough negatives for it to start dropping downhill. But not too much to consider it one of the worst stories of all time, nor enough to go into a rant about it. So I actually, like I said, I enjoyed it. It doesn't piss me off like some stories do, such as another certain story featuring the word warriors in the title. I'm still not over that one. No, Warriors Gate may possibly be my second least favourite story of all time. At least this is far superior to that. Okay, maybe not as much as Terminus, but superior anyway. But yeah, I like Warriors of the Deep, but I will admit there are some bad bits in it. So yeah, that's my summary of Warriors of the Deep. So yeah, how did you find this review? Did you find me polarising? Did you find me controversial? Did Jodie upset you? I hope not. Jodie hasn't done anything today. She's just had a picture on a mug. No controversy there, please. Okay, so to wrap up this controversial review, I will thank you for watching, and I shall see you guys next time for... I almost forgot the title just now. The Awakening, the second story of Season 21. I shall see you guys next time for The Awakening. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Well, it is better. I know it's better, but how good is it? We'll find out when we get to it. I'll see you guys then. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Yeah. It's this or, well, more at least one of them. So, yeah, without further ado, God's sake. But despite that, I do. But I think for what it could, which I still consider the logic from Hand of Fear. I still consider it bullshit. So I still consider that. I still consider the reference of no having weapons in the TARDIS bullshit. This is not going to be a Kinder thing where it's when I think it is focusing on the wrong thing instead of what I think it should have been focusing on, and it hindered my enjoyment quite a lot. Well, really a lot. It's not like Kinder where I was at. And Five Doctors did do that, but the Five Doctors did try to give him a bit more of I enjoy the story, I like enjoying it. So I'm actually going to be giving Warriors Gate, fuck me, that story's actually worse. So that's, I'm going in the, and we'll see you guys then. Goodbye, well, it is better.